Today again is Laetare Sunday. I'm wearing rose the 2 times of year where we can wear rose as a color that represents celebration and rejoicing. Easter is on the way. And last week, this week, and next week, of course, the gospel is taken from John, whereas most of the year is taken from Matthew. We have a little bit from Luke as well. But these 3 weeks are from John, and these 3 gospels in a particular way point us toward the sacraments, as the church is eagerly looking forward to those who will be entering into the fullness of the church this Easter. At the same time, this focus on the sacraments, this happens every year in Lent, this focus is also to remind us, those who have already been initiated into the fullness of the faith, of the beauty and the grace and the goodness and the power that God gives us through His church, through the sacraments. And so last week, so loaded with beautiful symbolism and rich theology, we only had a chance to scratch the surface in the story of the woman at the well. Here we are again with another story from the Gospel of John that is so rich. And so just to pull out a few things today, Jesus cures this man. This is a man born blind. This actually points towards one of the sacraments, which might not initially be apparent, but he cures this man who is born blind. How does he do it? By making clay with his own saliva. At face value, it might be like, okay, Jesus, I know you're God, but come on, that's a little weird. What are you doing? Why do you got to do it that way, Lord? But there is great purpose to everything Jesus does. In Jewish tradition, and actually when we found the Dead Sea Scrolls, it confirmed this with utter clarity that this was part of the Jewish belief and tradition, was that when God created Adam and Eve, He formed them from the dust, but dust itself isn't formable, it just collapses. The tradition was that God Himself spit into the dirt to form the clay and the mud that He formed Adam and Eve with before He breathed His life into them. So what Jesus is doing here is something that God did when He created Adam and Eve. And after He anoints the man's eyes, tells him to go wash, he's restored. So of course, we can see this points towards the sacrament of baptism. God is showing, first of all, I am God. He's doing something that God did when He created Adam and Eve, and then He does something that only God could do. This man born blind, it wasn't like he had a fever and God helped him get rid of his fever, which would be a miracle. It's not like he had a demon and God helped him be delivered. Mighty prophets had done that before. In the longer form of this gospel, the man in his testimony says, never has it been known that anyone born blind was healed. So Jesus does something here that God did when He formed Adam and Eve and proceeds to then do something that only God could do. He is saying, guys, I'm God. Crystal clear. No contest, no argument about it. I'm the Lord. And as He's doing that, what's the action He's taking is He's healing this man in a way that is a creative miracle. He is recreating this man's eye. He's not just getting an illness out of his eye. He is changing the cellular structure of his eye. He was born blind, and He's giving him a new eye. Out of nothing, He anoints him, and He's created a new eye, new life. And so all of this miracle points towards baptism in 2 ways: the opening of the man's eyes, and this reality of him being created anew. In this miraculous, his eye is created anew, and within him this new life springs forth. What is John telling us through this symbolic miracle of Jesus that is a real miracle? This man actually was blind and actually could see, but also all the deep symbolism. Baptism isn't just that you receive some new grace from God. In baptism, your soul is recreated. If we had eyes to see the spiritual world in its fullness, the way we can see the material world with our human eyes, if we had eyes to see what this is telling us today, and it's a good reminder, the person who's been baptized, their soul, our soul, is completely different than someone who's never been baptized. There's a creative miracle that God does within us through baptism where you are forever changed. You are never the same again once you've been baptized. He has created his life within you in a way that was not there before, in a way that can't be taken away. Well, the mark on your soul can't be taken away. Of course, we have our freedom. And that's where it gets interesting, because if we look with our human eyes out at the world, are there not many people who have been baptized where you can look and see, well, you're no different from anyone else who doesn't believe in God? It's even possible for someone who's been baptized to be the worst person ever. You can be baptized and then choose with your free will, because you really are free. You can choose to walk away from God and march straight on towards hell. You can be a murderer even if you're baptized. And so with our human eyes, we might not notice the difference, but what's happening here is that with baptism, the potential, the capability, the possibility is unlocked. That is only possible through God living within us, his life within us. And that is the capability, the possibility of growing in union with him to the point that your thoughts, words, and actions become more and more Jesus' very own thoughts, words, and actions. That only happens by him, his life within us, which he pours into our hearts through baptism. Without baptism, can you be a decent person of natural virtue? If you work really, really hard, yes. Can you do the things that Jesus did with his very self working within you? No. Now, God isn't bound by the sacraments. He can place his life in you outside of baptism, and maybe he does that sometimes, but what he promises is if you are baptized, that's what happens, and that's how I want to work primarily, and it's what he does. And that's where the second reading meets us today of St. Paul. This man born blind, he has this sense of being recreated, and he can see. He was in darkness, now he's in light. And that's what St. Paul says. Brothers and sisters, you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. And right after he says that, he doesn't say, so don't worry about anything, because now it's guaranteed that you're going to be light. He says, so live as children of the light. And at the end, he's quoting that ancient hymn. Therefore it says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light. So Paul's even recognizing this reality that through our baptism, there's a call to live into the implications. And as I live into that and step towards God, arise from the dead, and then Christ will give you light. So that's the great call of Lent. That's the great call of our lives, is to step more and more into what God is asking so that we can have more of him within us. Why? For light produces, once we have that light, as we step away from the darkness and death and into his life, we receive his light. Light produces every kind of goodness and righteousness and truth. So many different ways to talk about this, so many things we can think about with this. As I was praying with it, what the Holy Spirit was inspiring in my heart today, the angle to approach this with that I would propose to you, is to think about how our eyes are opened and we're called to remember what's truest and deepest, which is what we do on Laetare Sunday. We remember the world and the life to come that God is calling us to. And so to think about in my life with my prayer, fasting, and almsgiving this Lent, to think about the intention of my heart. Because to have my eyes fully opened is to be seeing things in the truth of heaven. And to see things in the truth of heaven is to realign my motives and my intentions to that. And so to think about, very simply, why am I doing what I'm doing? And there's all kinds of goods that we're seeking with everything we do. And just to notice wherever there's an idol. For all of us, there's idols all over our lives in small ways, maybe big ways, but even in small ways, where I'm seeking to do the right thing for a good reason that's not the truest reason. And so it's very simply just to notice that and then to elevate. So if we think about our Lenten penances, I am trying to, give more money to the poor. Well, why am I trying to do that? What's the good thing I'm seeking there? Well, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to be punished by God. Great, that's a good thing. But if that's the end that which I'm stopping, for which I'm doing it, well, that's now an idol. I'm doing that for that's own sake, so that I avoid hell. But God doesn't want you to merely avoid hell. He wants to be glorified. And he wants you in him to be glorified. He wants to be in union with you more and more. And so just to notice that and say, okay, yep, I'm right now doing this just so I don't go to hell. I'm going to raise my eyes and actually remember, no, I'm going to do this for your glory, Lord. Not just so I don't go to hell, but even more for your glory and so that I can be filled with your presence. And we can look at this even with all the desires of my heart. I want healing, Lord, from my wounds. Why? So that I don't have to be in pain anymore, because I don't like the pain that these wounds cause me. That's a good thing. God doesn't want us to be in pain. In heaven, there will be no more pain. But if that's the only end, if that's the highest thing I'm seeking just to get out of the pain I'm experiencing, that's become an idol. And the Lord says, elevate even higher. Yes, seek the alleviation of your pain, but first and above all, seek my glory and seek to bring your pain and be in union with me in your pain. Because in this life, he promises us the cross. And so then I can raise my eyes and say, okay, Lord, while this pain is here, I'll unite it with you on the cross and I'll draw close to you. And I'll seek to be with you there who suffered the same pain for me and who are suffering it with me now. And as I do that and draw close to him, where I'm in pain, suddenly, I actually become full of his light right there. While I'm still in pain, he redeems that while it's happening, and he's taking me through the pain and bringing healing. Because I've gotten rid of the idol and I've gone even higher to look at the truest end, not just to get out of this pain right now, but to be in union with the Lord here right now and let him work. Always and everywhere, he's working to give us blessings, and the call is not just to seek the ends that are below the highest end, but to keep elevating. With my Lenten fasting, am I giving up sweets because I feel gross when I eat too many sweets because I want to lose weight? Great. That's actually a good thing. That's a beautiful thing. And if that's the only reason, well, that's an idol, so keep that thing and also elevate. No, I want to also do this even more, to do this for the glory of God, to give praise to his name. Because when I'm healthy and alive, I can live in his love and receive his love more. When I say no to these earthly things, my thirst for him increases so I can receive more. In everything we do, the implications of our baptism is to continually notice our idols that are there, those things we're seeking as an end in themselves, and keep the good that's there. Don't throw it away, but just to elevate and say, I'm going to go even higher. And then I get the good that comes with it in the end. And I get everything that God's promising. And for those to be baptized, those here, those who may be watching this later with our small crew here, there may be many from home who are going to watch this later. For those being baptized, get excited. You're going to begin a new life that you didn't have before, and you're going to have the capacity to be a great saint. The old covenant, the old law cannot save, as St. Paul says again and again and again in his letters. But the new law, his life within us, does save as I continue to follow him. Praise be to God. And so today at this Mass, the invitation, as we're pondering all this, we have the invitation going out today to think about where is there an idol and just elevate up to the higher good. But today at this Mass, the encouragement is, wherever that gap is, to put that all on the altar. Here's where I'm not living fully as Jesus. Here's where I'm seeking an end in itself that isn't the truest end. I'm sorry, Lord, I'll just put that on the altar. And as I come to receive you today or to receive a blessing today, help me bridge that gap with your grace. Help that gap between where I am now and the fullness of what you have, help that decrease a little so I can be more like you. Come hungry for that grace today because he offers it.